So let's talk about the Chicago Bears. 3-4 in the NFC North. Last place, not ideal. The offense has been absolutely terrible, and a lot of that blame can be put on the shoulders of Mitch Trubisky. He certainly shares that blame with Matt Nagy, but Mitch really has not looked good at all this year. Last year I said that the Bears could win a Super Bowl as long as Mitch didn't turn the ball over, and I thought I was going to be right, and then Cody Parkey happened, a situation which was, of course, brought back into the front of everyone's mind this weekend when Eddie Pinheiro hit a doink and then proceeded to miss a game winner to bail out the rest of the Bears team for a win they would not have deserved. It's clear that Matt Nagy doesn't trust Mitch Trubisky in the way he's calling plays. I'm not sure Mitch Trubisky's teammates trust him to lead this team. The fans obviously don't trust him. And then you've got to wonder if Mitch still trusts himself. Does he have the confidence to be a starting quarterback in the NFL? And I'm not sure he does. In any case, I don't think anyone believes that Mitch is the long-term future of this team or is going to lead this team to a Super Bowl while this defense is still in its elite window that it's in right now. So how do you fix the Mitch Trubisky problem? Well, you've got a couple options, and the first one is free agency. There's actually a really deep free agent quarterback class this offseason, and so let's take a look at a few of the guys who are out there. We'll start with the older guys, and out of respect, I suppose, I'll start with Tom Brady. He's not technically a free agent this offseason. He does have one more year agreed to with the Patriots, but reporting suggests he's allowed to opt out at any point. Now, would Tom Brady opt out for the Bears? I kind of doubt it. My suspicion is he wants to finish his career in New England, and I think New England wants him to finish his career there, if for no other reason than nostalgia or to help mentor whichever quarterback comes in next. Eventually, Tom Brady is going to fall off a cliff, and I think he's still going to be a Patriot when he does that, and I don't think it's worth the Chicago Bears taking the risk for Tom Brady to hit that cliff on the Bears. Wishful thinking that Tom Brady would come to Chicago, I don't see it. Then there's Phillip Rivers. Good old Phil Rivers. Looking for somewhere else in the world to be stuck inside his own 20-yard line with less than 2 minutes to go, down a touchdown in a late window game on a Sunday afternoon. Phil's fine. He's certainly a better pocket passer than Trubisky, but the guy can't really run, especially not at 38. Phil Rivers is the kind of guy you go after if you're in a win-right-now mentality, but I don't know if Phil Rivers is still win-right-now good. Would he be good enough? Maybe, but I just don't think he's a stylistic fit for the Bears. Next, we've got Eli. Get the heck out of here. We're not even going to waste any time talking about you. Moving right along, Kyle Allen. Allen's been solid since coming in for Cam Newton, who's dealing with lingering injury issues, and looks like he's going to be Carolina's quarterback for potentially the rest of the season. The Panthers are in a really tough spot here because a healthy Kyle Allen is better than an injured Cam Newton, but a healthy Cam Newton would be better than a healthy Kyle Allen. The question is Cam Newton ever going to be healthy again? I don't think anybody's so sure of that. That being said, the Panthers aren't out of a playoff race yet, so they're not going to tank for a quarterback, and I think they could very well hold on to Kyle Allen. I mean, if he's a safe choice for now. They could go look in the free agent market for a quarterback like anybody else, but I don't see Kyle Allen walking away from Carolina, given the precarious situation they find themselves in with Cam Newton. Next, let's talk Tennessee Titans. So Marcus Mariota has been benched, and he's a free agent at the end of the year, but is he really any better than Trubisky? I see them as similar in a lot of ways. I think Mitch is maybe a little better scrambler, a better runner, but they're inconsistent passers out of the pocket. They show brilliance in moments, but look just lost and confused at other times. I wouldn't view Mariota as any sort of upgrade, and honestly, I think he's just Trubisky 2.0 potentially, so I think we can skip him. The more interesting prospect on the Titans is Ryan Tannehill, who's looked really good in the 2 games he has started since Mariota got benched. He's completed over 70% of his passes and has a quarterback rating of 115 in those 2 games he's played. He looks like he might still be the quarterback we saw in Miami before those knee injuries really derailed his career. Which, of course, means Tennessee's going to probably not let him walk away. Yes, he's a free agent, but I'm sure if this good play continues, Tennessee's going to look to lock him up with a longer-term contract and keep him around for a while. They might even do that before the season's over. So as satisfied as I'd be with Ryan Tannehill, Chicago Bears quarterback, I don't see him leaving Tennessee next season. Then there's the man with whom Marcus Mariota is forever linked, Jameis Winston, a man who is a worse decision maker in the pocket than Mitch and who I wouldn't trust on a football field or off of it. Yes, Jameis throws for a ridiculous amount of yards, but the dude's a turnover machine. He leads the league with 12 interceptions so far this season. I don't want that, and neither should the Bears. Another team that gets interestingly in this mix is the San Francisco 49ers. No, Bears fans, we're not getting Jimmy Garoppolo. The two guys who are available, though, are Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard, who the Bears were weirdly linked with trading for. Why would you trade for CJ Beathard? Yes, his contract's running out, but the guy was mediocre at best when he came in for Garoppolo last year and was then well outshone by Mullins. So, I don't know what that talk was about, but good thing that move didn't happen. I think Mullins is an interesting prospect, though. Maybe not as a guy you bring in and start over Mitch, but as a better backup than Chase Daniel, who can push Trubisky a bit to maybe try to achieve his potential and know that someone's breathing down his neck to take that spot. Mullins way outpaced expectations last year as the third-string quarterback for San Fran down the stretch. That team wasn't very good. He did the best he could with what he had, but he might not be a bad guy to have around if things really do go south with Mitch. Maybe the most intriguing of this group of free agents is Case Keenum, and what even is Case Keenum? Keenum was great a couple years ago for the Vikings. He even almost got them to a Super Bowl. But then he's been anything but great with Denver and DC. To be fair, neither one of those teams is very good. He doesn't have a whole lot of great offensive weapons except for Terry McLaurin out of nowhere. Can the Bears get him? But I view Keenum as a really predictable option. I think his floor is relatively high with some of these other guys. And you know what you're going to get with him. It's not going to be anything spectacular, but would it be enough to get the Bears into the playoffs? I think so. Is it enough to win a Super Bowl? Maybe. Which brings us to the man who is the class of this free agent class, and that's Saints quarterback Teddy Bridgewater, who has been phenomenal in relief of Drew Brees. Brees returned this past weekend, but Bridgewater started 5 games in his absence and was awesome, completing over 69% of his passes and throwing 9 touchdowns to just 2 picks. The thing is, after that, it's hard to not think the Saints will see Bridgewater as their quarterback of the future. He's an unrestricted free agent, but much like Tannehill in Tennessee, I'm not sure he's going to be allowed to get very far. I don't think Sean Payton sees Taysom Hill as a viable NFL quarterback. I think he kind of likes him in that Swiss Army knife role. And Drew Brees, I don't think has more than 2 years left in the tank to be the Saints starting quarterback. And Bridgewater looked pretty darn good. The Saints look like a Super Bowl contender, and most of that came with Bridgewater at the helm. I would love for the Bears to have Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback next year, but I wouldn't put my money on it. So with that, to recap, Bridgewater, Keenum, Tannehill, any of those guys, I'd be really happy to see them under center for the Bears next year instead of Mitch Trubisky, but again, it's complicated. The trade deadline did just pass, but the Bears could, of course, trade for a quarterback in the offseason. There's a few decent options to take a look at there. First up, Josh Rosen. The Dolphins are tanking for Tua, and I don't think if that happens that Rosen's going to stick around. Obviously, the roadblock in this scenario is if the Dolphins' tank doesn't work out and either Cincinnati or Washington beats them to the punch on Tua. But if they manage to successfully tank for Tua, Rosen's going to want out of there. This guy was a 10th overall draft pick. He's not going to be content to sit back up to some 21-year-old right out of college. He's going to want to move on. He's been in awful situations in both Arizona and Miami. The Bears would undoubtedly be a better spot, and I want to see Josh Rosen get a shot with a better team. Maybe the Bears could be that team. He's got a year left on his contract, so they'd have to give up something for him, but it might be worth it for the upside. Staying in the great state of Florida, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. First up, Nick Foles, who, why on earth did the Jaguars give him $88 million? Obviously, I'm not talking about his injury. They couldn't have predicted that, but the dude's literally never been an above-average NFL quarterback for more than the playoffs in 2017. Yes, he was unbelievable in that Eagles playoff run, and yes, they should build a statue of him outside the stadium in Philly, but come on. The guy bounced around the league for a reason. Jacksonville should have never given him that contract, and absolutely no other NFL team should touch it either. So, pass. And then they've got Gardner Minshew, who's become NFL's favorite folk hero, but why? The guy isn't even that good. If he didn't stretch only in his jockstrap in the locker room and didn't have a cool mustache, we wouldn't care about him. He's worse than Kyle Allen, who, yes, is the most boring quarterback with the most boring quarterback name imaginable. But we only like Minshew because we think he's a cool guy, which doesn't get points as an NFL quarterback. And you know that some team, Dan Snyder, anybody, is going to trade for Gardner Minshew because they think it's a good idea and it's going to be absolutely disastrous. He might go on to have a good NFL career, but I'm really not comfortable with the idea of giving something up for Gardner Minshew. I have to include at least one semi-long shot in this list, so I'll go with Derek Carr. Carr and Gruden's relationship in Oakland has been fraught, obviously, and there was some thought that Gruden might want a fresh start in Vegas, but Carr and the Raiders might be playing too well for that to happen. He's leading the league with a 72% completion percentage, and Oakland looks like they really might be putting something together right now. He also has $58 million left in his contract, so I'm not sure the Bears want that. Also, would John Gruden really want to do business with the Bears again after how that panned out for him the last time he did that? I don't think so. But we can dream, right? Then, a man I've already mentioned, Cam Newton, which I just don't think Cam's worth the risk. If he was healthy, Cam Newton in the Bears offense I think would be awesome. His running ability, his physicality, his ability to turn a nothing play into something, those would all be great traits in Matt Nagy's system, but is the guy ever going to be the same again? I don't think so, and I definitely don't think it's worth giving something up for a broken quarterback. Which brings us to maybe the most intriguing member of this trade for list, the Red Rifle himself, Andy Dalton. Dalton was obviously pretty upset the other day when he was only told about getting benched a few hours before the trade deadline, so there was no time for any team, the Bears or anyone else, to put in an offer. Dalton's a 3-time Pro Bowler, which, yes, Trubisky was a Pro Bowler last year, so I realize that doesn't necessarily mean that much, but the guy's got some talent. He's just stuck on an absolutely awful team. I don't think he's a world beater. I'd put him in the Tannehill, Case Keenum category, and he might have the disadvantage compared to those guys of still being under contract, and thus he'd have to give something up for him. He's owed $17.5 million next season, which in the current climate, if he turns out to be pretty good, is worth it for a quarterback. And while I'd be fine seeing him under center for the Bears, and that orange hair would pair really well with these uniforms if that's something anyone wants to think of, I just don't know if he's worth giving something up for when there's really similar quarterbacks out there who you don't have to give up anything but the cash to sign. We have to talk about the draft, but folks, it's not looking great for the Bears. Their best pick's a second rounder, and then they have nothing till 3 fifth-round picks. And could you use that second-round pick on a quarterback? Maybe. You're certainly not going to be competing for any of the elite guys, Tua, Herbert, Burrow, so on. But maybe a guy like Jalen Hurts could be available there, a really athletic quarterback who's got a really strong arm as well, a certainly dual threat who could maybe bring some interesting dimensions to Matt Nagy's offense. But is Hurts going to be there at that point in the second round? I don't know. Maybe. Even if he is, could the Bears do something better with that pick? Trubisky's struggled, but he hasn't gotten any help from his offensive line. This is a team with a stellar defense and some really promising weapons offensively. An upgraded offensive line could really help the Bears, especially with Kyle Long's future being so uncertain per his latest injury. So if I'm the Bears, I'm keeping that second round pick. You've already gotten rid of all the other ones basically this year, and I'm going and drafting probably an offensive lineman to help out whoever's under center. So while this quarterback draft class is promising, I don't see the Bears being a part of that. So again, we've got a few options. The Bears could let Mitch ride this next year of his contract out, but even if they do that, they better bring in someone better than Chase Daniel to back him up in case things go south in a hurry. Then, of course, the Bears could trade for a quarterback with, I think, Rosen and Dalton being the best options. But if you were going to do that, you should have done it last week when the leverage was there. Yes, the Dolphins are still trying to win games, supposedly, but they're not even playing Rosen right now. He's sitting on the bench, and if Dalton had been given any more notice, that would have been the time to go get him, but I digress. I think the best place to look is in the free agent market, and certainly the best pick of that group is Teddy Bridgewater. But like I said, I think he's going to end up staying in New Orleans, and I think Ryan Tannehill is going to end up staying in Nashville, which leaves us with Case Keenum, who might be a good option. I don't think he's a huge upgrade on Mitch, but he's more predictable, and maybe he's enough to get the Bears where they want to go. In the end, I don't know if it's Trubisky. I don't know if it's Nagy. I'm starting to think it might be both, but I don't think Nagy's going anywhere. And you know what? I know it's hard to admit that Mitch was a mistake, and I know he was the second overall pick in a draft. How on earth did that happen? But you've got to be able to admit when you've made a mistake, and this defense isn't going to be this good forever, and so you've got to make a move, and you've got to make one soon. Otherwise, you're going to end up sending another Bears defense into the history books like the ones this guy captained for 10 years of just being wasted with terrible, terrible offenses. So I think you've got to move on from Mitch. It's just a question of how. Why aren't you Deshaun Watson? Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you did. I'm hoping to make more of this kind of stuff. And while you're there, go ahead and watch the last 2 videos I made. One about the equal pay fight of the U.S. women's national soccer team, and one from a trip I took to the NWSL semifinal last weekend between the Red Stars, who unfortunately lost in the final to the North Carolina Courage, and the Portland Thorns. It was a really great time. Support women's soccer. I'm hoping to do more content on that side. Also going to try to do more Chicago sports as well, and given the dire straits of a lot of the teams at the moment, there's no shortage of material.